This podcast is a proud member of the UUOP network.
This is episode 638 of the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast for November 19th, 2024. Hello everyone, welcome to the show. I'm your host Lee. I'm here with Tracy. Hello. And Michelle.
Hi.
And our guest host Lauren.
Hello.
And for his last appearance on the podcast, Chris.
See ya.
Wow. Is this a speed episode? I like the pace that we're going at. Can we keep it?
Thanks for joining. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
For those in the producers club, you'll hear the reason for that intro when we get into that bonus episode. But for right now, I need to be a little more upbeat because this is again quite a serious episode, but not really. As I always kind of bury the lead again. You know what this episode is: mental health podcast, parks, producers club people have sent stories in, and there's some really we know how much of a big deal mental health is now, and how much theme parks, especially for us lot, how much Universal Orlando has become a huge part of that. So we had a load of emails and stuff left over from when we did it last time, so we're just going to go through a few of them and comment and stuff. But before we get started,
UUOP is brought to you by the Producers Club. Join today and get bonus episodes, chance to be guest host, be part of our awesome Facebook community, and more. Head over to uUOP.supercast.com to subscribe. Shameless plug.
And at least you get to hear Chris every week, even if he's not on the show.
I get my royalties, baby. Let's go.
You get all, mate. Anyway. So yes, moving on, we will begin with the first little email, and that comes from Laurie Canning. So Tracy, would you like to read that, please?
Yes, I will. Although life throws us challenges, I personally find it impossible to be sad at Universal, which in itself is a blessing. I think as travelling from the UK and there for long periods of time, it really feels like the world you left at home pauses and nothing matters except being at the parks. The rides, the smells, the food and the music just makes me feel stress-free and in a childlike happiness. I lost my mum in 2022 and I have countless memories of being there with her. She took us as a family 10 times and we always had a blast, although going back without her is bittersweet. My sister and I went together late in 2022 and it just let us forget briefly and enjoy things we all do and know our mum did too. We even got matching tattoos at City Walk to cement our trip and how Universal makes us feel. It truly is my happy place. Although sometimes it makes me cry, mostly happy tears, it really does just provide time to forget and feel young again. Laurie.
I mean, that kind of nails it on the head, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. That place was healing for her, even with the memories that would be painful that soon. That's a testament to the place.
I love the happy tears part.
Yeah.
It's a sentiment that you'll probably hear going through these a lot, that it's a happy place to be, but then the flip side of that is it's an unhappy place not to be, if that makes sense. Because you have such an emotional connection to it, when you're not there, look, I kind of talked about it when I was sat at home watching everyone in the Producers Club say, oh, I've got tickets for opening day for Epic Universe, and we got this day and we got that day, and I knew I wasn't going next year. That was so hard for me to watch that.
Yeah, I think part of it, I mean, I know it's not to the extent that you're going to right now, but that not being there all the time also adds to that escapism and kind of feeling, right? Because if we did go all the time, then it wouldn't have that glimmer would kind of disappear a bit. So I don't know, maybe it makes it that much more special that when you do get to go, you get to relive those memories, especially for Laurie, just thinking about those times that she did, oh, I rode this with her. I ate over here with her. That's a really cool and amazing feeling to have. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sorry for your loss, Laurie. I meant to say that at the end of it as well.
Yes, of course. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, Lauren, how often would you say you go to the parks?
Oh, more often than my husband would like us to. We go at least once a year. And there have been a few years where I've gone 3 or 4 times. Okay. And again, I'm flying in from Detroit. It's like a 2-hour flight.
but I've like finagled him into like, I have an annual pass too. So yeah, we went once early this year. We were going to go next month, but now we're going in January with all of his siblings. But last year in 2022, I went like 3 or 4 times. I made some moves. But yeah, I try to go as often as I can. It's the escapism part. And even, I mean, again, sorry for Lori's loss. It's so nice to be able to have a place though, where you have those incredible memories and that you can go and you can just think of, you know, you can miss someone, but you can still feel that like these were a good time that we had together. Yeah. There was, oh man, Andrew Garfield was just talking about grief of his mom.
Yes. That was beautiful.
And it was such a beautiful, like, it's okay to miss somebody because you know that sadness is kind of a gift because it shows how much you loved them. And I'm like, oh, you feel that about people when you're doing things that you used to do together. And I think that that's such a beautiful memory to be able to have with someone in a place that's so special.
Yeah.
Remember him saying like the grief and sadness is all the unexpressed love that has nowhere to go. And I've never forgotten that ever since he said it.
You've already seen a glimpse into my future, depending on which one of us goes first. That
I'm immortal.
I love you, Tracy.
If I went to Universal without Tracy, as proved when she off with Grace the other year, I didn't know what to do with myself in that park on my own.
I think you should have a day to yourself.
But I did. I went. I had a morning there with Raymond, our oldest. We did.
That's not by yourself.
No, that's what I'm saying. Though that was without you. Mm-hmm. But on my own, I just kind of sat on a table and went, I don't know what to do. It was weird.
That does not compute.
It was weird.
Imagine if I'd done that for 3 months last year.
That was different. Anyway.
Yes.
Chris.
Yeah. All right. The next one comes from Leslie Kish, and she goes, I don't visit the parks much, so often don't have anything to contribute, but this topic really touched my heart and why Universal is special to me. Our last visit a few years back was a trip shortly after we suddenly lost my dad. My mom, brother, husband, and kiddos took the trip together, and it was so healing. My dad loved coasters, Harry Potter, comic strips, and Marvel, and would have loved the parks. I was also at a crossroads in my career and other parts of life, so I was feeling pretty angry and depressed all the time. I really lost myself. I chose I Will Survive as my track on Rip Ride Rocket and sang at the top of my lungs the whole ride. I laughed. I smiled. Somehow that trip helped me. I'd be okay, Leslie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange how many people have bereavements as a connection to the parks.
Yeah.
For sure. There's so much, and it is such a, when you go on a vacation with your family, I mean, there's so much stress that can sometimes come with that too.
Yeah.
That like when you're on a vacation with your family, you're like, oh my God, if my dad was not here right now, I'd be having a better time.
Yeah.
Or like you're getting so stressed about just herding cats in my case, like trying to make sure everybody is somewhere at the same time. But then you're realizing you're having such like formidable moments in your memories.
Yeah.
And then when you go back, you're like, wow, that was actually such an incredible experience, or seeing the things that they would enjoy can be such a beautiful time.
It's a weird thing to say, but I often think that you don't realize how good a time you've had until you come home and are looking it through the rear view mirror.
Oh yeah.
Because like you said, they are stressful. These trips, especially not saying it's any better or worse for us, but coming over from the UK, there's a whole extra level of getting there. And then the financial aspect to it, and there's that pressure on to have the most amazing time. And if you're not, like you hear it, don't you? Those parents dragging the kids around, going, "Do you know how much I've paid to be here? You will have fun, God damn it!"
I think I've heard you say that.
Probably. And it is difficult that a lot of the time you don't. By the time you've got home and those crappy little moments kind of bleed away, and you're just left with the good memories.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
I think you hit it on the head, Lauren. Yeah. To be honest, it's like we just came back from a trip to Horror Nights with the family, and I lost my a bit because I had like sister, brother-in-law, mom, dad, and a baby now and niece. And I was like kind of upset at certain parts because I'm like, we're not doing this the way it should be done, blah, 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 all that stuff. Fast forward, trip's over. And I'm like, it was such an awesome trip and I loved it. And I'd love to do it again. It's a weird emotion to have. Especially
for you, Chris, because that's the first time you took Lucas. You're always going to remember that.
It was the first time. And it's such a weird thing because like I'm very cognizant of that. And so I want to take 1 trillion pictures in every single thing and also enjoy the moment at the time. And then it just feels very fast and it's just crazy. But yeah, that was his first moment. So the entire trip is just like, oh, this is the first time Lucas is here or does this and does that. And I will never forget that.
Yep. And then next year will be his first year at Horror Nights and, you know.
Year after his first year scare acting.
And then the year after that'll be his first beer in Strongwater.
Yeah.
Lauren, next one, please.
Excellent. All right, next we have a letter from Jenna Vutsinas. Universal has become such a big part of my life over the last few years, and it mostly started because my then boyfriend got an internship and job with Creative. From there, I wanted to learn more about the parks and found UUOP. Through this podcast, I have fallen more in love with the parks and truly appreciate them. I am now, as I say, a Universal adult. It's like a Disney adult, but I can swear without ruining a 5-year-old's magical day. Universal has become my happy place. When I'm frustrated at work, I can look at my calendar and try to find my next vacation or have a countdown in mind. It's a place where, with the Producers Club, I'll always have friends to hang out and experience the park with. Making so many great friendships through the Producers Club has helped tremendously. I got involved right after lockdown started being lifted for COVID and have met so many incredible people in a time in my life I was transitioning from college to adulthood. I still have some friends from my school years, but it was definitely a lonely period, being new to a corporate workforce and trying to figure out who I am as an adult. I can't remember exactly how I wrote it, but I remember in the Weekender chat, I posted how glad I was to have found a community of fantastic people who are truly the kindest and funniest. And that I've learned that you don't have to grow up and that being an adult is truly just being a big kid with responsibility. Thank you for all of the fun, and that's what she said jokes that you've brought into my life. Sincerely, Jenna.
Aw.
I feel like there's a lot of people listening now that will completely understand Jenna's sentiments there as finding... I mean, Chris, I'm not saying that you will have gone up to the parks over the last 20 years, just you and Alexa, or you, Alexa, and your family, but how often do you go now just you and your family and won't bump into somebody you know through the podcast?
It hasn't happened. Like that bumping into somebody happens almost every time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. I love it though, especially during Horror Nights time.
Yeah. It's crazy for me too, because I'm not a local. I live in South Carolina, and don't go as often as you guys do, but through this and also through Rush, I also am now bumping into people, not just in the parks, but also in the hotels, on the buses, etc. And it's just, it's still bizarre to me.
It really is. I said it, but for me, it was that first morning we spent in the parks with Michelle, where she'd never been in the parks with us before. And I was always like, oh yeah, we know the Blues Brothers and we know this people from Horror Makeup, we know this, and we literally walked into Universal Studios Florida and within 10 minutes had bumped into like 6 people we know, and I don't think she actually believed that we knew that many people. And just like, oh my god, you really do know people here, don't you?
In my head I'm thinking, oh my god, this is so freaking annoying, can we just go ride the freaking ride now? Like, oh my god.
All I'll say is I have to be very aware that my resting bitch face is turned off. Because I don't want to put people off.
I've said it before.
You mean like that time Lee flicked somebody off?
What?
Oh my goodness.
Horror Nights.
I didn't flick him off.
But
Grayson, that was hilarious. I love that story. I've said it before. I can go into my local town to do some shopping and not see a single person I know. Yeah, I can go into a theme park 4,500 miles away and can't walk around a corner without bumping into someone who knows me or who I know. And it's just bizarre. No. It is bizarre.
And And I just need to apologize in advance because I know it's going to happen if it hasn't already, but I am terrible. My wife tells me all the time, I don't pay attention around me when I walk, like when I'm in public. And I guarantee you, if I do not hear you calling my name or notice you, please don't be offended.
This is the same.
It's my ADHD. I'm not seeing all that. Yeah. So come tap me on the shoulder. It's all good.
There's so much going on.
To your point, I mean, I ran into a producer, Christina, at a different park altogether while entering a bar.
Okay.
That's a surprise, Chris.
Well, Olga's Cantina at Star Wars.
Oh, Sulik, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, we're waiting there to go in, and she just like came up, and that's not even Universal, and we're just bumping into people over there. So it's like, it's kind of cool just having, and then we just kind of sat and talked for like a second because we were running around, but yeah, I mean, it's just in general, it's kind of awesome just hanging out with other people and seeing, even if it's just a quick 2-minute conversation, and like, go enjoy your day.
Well, look, we proved that we can't even go to the Magic Kingdom without bumming into people who know who we are, or like Scott Bergeron, Producers Club member in line, or the guy who was handing out candy in the Monsters Inc. thing who was a listener. You're like, it is bizarre, and it's that community. I know people say, oh, you should be so proud of that community that you've created, and I'm like, I haven't created a community. The community is just...
It creates itself.
Come around us. I haven't purposefully gone out there to do it. We haven't purposefully gone out to create a community. We are ourselves, and we just seem to gather like-minded people, and then those like-minded people just...
But I always tell you every single time, yes, you didn't create the community, but you harnessed or cultivated an environment and gave a platform to bring that community together. So give yourself a little credit there, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, there's a group who we talked about, the Seekender group.
The Seekender group, yeah.
So Madeline, Grace and Kelly, I find that hilarious.
Yeah.
Tyler, Kevin, who am I missing? Kayla. Is that it? If I'm missing someone, I do apologise. They came to the Weekender and ended up all solo travellers, and now they meet up every time they go at the parks. They have weekly Zoom meetings. They are the best of friends.
They're so tight.
Until 18 months ago,
cool.
2 years ago, they didn't know each other existed, and now they are the best of friends. It's crazy.
Yeah. How about other people that have traveled to other countries to see each other?
Yeah.
And I did, technically... I met listeners in Seoul.
Yeah, Grace again.
I met up with Grace. And it's crazy. It really is. But it's, and that's got to be, like you say, we're talking about a mental health thing. That's great knowing that you've got friends all over the place. That network is just immense.
And it makes you feel less crazy spending this much money on a vacation.
Yes. Yeah,
because there's other people doing it and they're enabling you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And humans 100%. And humans are nothing if not pack animals that like to follow the herd.
Exactly. It makes you feel like, oh, so I've got friends that are doing this. What I'm doing is not that crazy.
Exactly.
This is ridiculous.
So what we're doing now is we're just justifying it for everybody.
Exactly.
There you go. You're welcome.
Exactly. There's a bunch of other people who do it too. What do you mean?
It's the whole, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you jump as well? Like, are they going to Universal?
Yeah. Is the bridge in Jurassic Park? Yes. I would love to. Thank you.
Yep.
Actually, I like to think that I'm the friend that would jump first.
Probably. All right. Our next email comes from Zach Thurston. He says, Universal and UUOP has been such a positive for me. My love for Universal started in high school when a buddy of mine invited me to go on a spring break trip to Florida with him and his family. We went again the next year and subsequently have tried to make a trip down from the Midwest together every few years. UUOP helps fill the gap for sure. I ended up going to Hogsmeade within the first year it opened and hadn't read or watched any Harry Potter before that, so seeing it all for the first time was truly a life-changing experience. Our trips to Universal have brought so much joy, and at any time I'm feeling down on my luck or struggling to make it through a challenging time, reminders of those trips and thoughts of those to come help tremendously. Listening to UUOP keeps those positive feelings top of my mind. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? And brings up joyful reminiscing conversations with my friends. Tuesdays are one of my favourite days of the week.
Aww.
There's something about a love of Universal that's pure and freeing. No matter what life throws at me, the memory of the first time I sat in the Hogshead pub to people watch or trying my best to max out on Men in Black Alien Attack in an instant burst of joy. I wish I could do more justice to the impact Universal has had on me, but I do know my life is better being part of this fandom and the Producers Club. Thank you for all you do, Zach.
Aww.
And that's
so sweet.
That's very much a thing that I latch on to. So knowing that we have a trip to look forward to in a number of weeks has probably what's dragged me through the last 2 months of my life.
Yeah. We're opposites like that though, aren't we? Whereas it will be boarding the plane and I am not excited.
But you're the opposite. We're the opposite way around this time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Because usually it's not until we've touched down, we've got our baggage and we're in the hotel, then I can go, right, we're here, it's happening now. And honestly, it could get to, we're driving to the airport on the day we're supposed to fly, and if we got a call saying it's all cancelled, I just go, okay then, turn around and go home. I know that would devastate Lee, but something weird in my head, that wouldn't. But this time around, I'm actually getting...
I'm not at all.
Little excited butterflies and things.
It's a focus for me to get through, but I'm not ready to go. Lucy was sitting next to at work. Yeah. So Lucy at work asked me, it's like, oh my God, it's not long till you go now, isn't it? I'm like, it's weeks. And she's like, are you excited? And I'm like, no, I'm not ready yet.
There's too much to do before we go.
I've got too much to do before we go. So I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, I have a 3-hour drive and I feel the same way. I can only imagine coming across in an airplane.
Oh, it's easy. Just get your book.
It's sorting all this out right now. I hate coming out and not having podcasts. I still want content to be out there. So that's what's stressing me out at the moment, because I know I've still got stuff to put in place for us coming out, and there's a lot of work to go in yet, and we haven't got very long.
No. See, Lee, that's why you need a Nicole.
She can't record this podcast for me.
You cannot have my Nicole. But having a Nicole is so amazing. No, she doesn't necessarily record the podcast, but you can record the podcast and then Nicole just like handles the rest, and it just happens kind of magically. Like, pop, there goes the podcast on the air. It's amazing.
Yeah, I can't do that.
That's never happening.
You could if you tried.
I couldn't.
No, he couldn't. He has tried.
I really couldn't. There's only ever one person I've entrusted to edit this show that isn't me.
It wasn't me.
No.
Well, it's definitely never going to be me, because I would be terrified.
It was my oldest son, funnily enough. Anyway, you're right. Michelle, next one, please.
Yes, this one comes from, I'm so sorry, Leanne Lessard. I'm going to go with that. Yeah. Universal Orlando has almost completely impacted my mental health in a positive way. For me personally, I get through my tough days when I have something to look forward to. Even when I don't have a trip planned, knowing that I always have somewhere to go home keeps me going. It keeps me motivated at work when I'm feeling particularly stressed by my job. I just feel like I belong there, and that's very uplifting because I have very rarely felt that in my life. I will say, though, I never quite feel as down as I do after coming home from a Universal vacation. Yep. It's a special kind of sadness I feel afterwards because I just simply can't get there as much as I'd like to. I've come home from other trips and been fine, but coming home from Universal hits me right in the heart. So I usually go through quite a funk upon return, and it takes a few weeks for that black cloud over me to evaporate. Lee can definitely relate to that. I'd say that is the one negative on my mental health as far as Universal is concerned. UUOP has definitely helped my mental health in such a positive way, for sure. I look forward to each week's episode, and it really makes me smile at least once, which instantly makes me feel good. The last couple of weeks, I've actually been going back starting in 2019 to today again.
Wow.
Yeah, listening to you four has made my days so much brighter during the particularly hard patch I'm currently in. For that, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I know that it's probably not always easy to show up week after week, but for me, it has been a lifesaver. UUOP definitely scratches the itch for me of wanting to get to the parks to experience them. It's obviously not the same, but the weekly episodes do make me feel like I am there in part. Thank you for all that you do. I know I'm not the only one you've had this impact on. Leanne. Oh.
And it's emails like that will always make me feel that even if I'm ready to quit, I probably won't, because I know how much of an impact what we do has on other people.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. You guys know it's not easy what we do. There's a lot of work involved in everything we do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's conflict, it's not easy. I think we get along.
Yeah.
As a rule.
Yeah.
But there's sorting out things behind the scenes. There's always going to be those little bits of conflict. I like to think we come through it relatively well because we're adults.
We're a family.
But as far as what Leanne said there, and Michelle, you hit it well and truly on the head. Chris will tell you, I think it was The Weekender. It was the only time I got emotional on that trip. We were stood by the horror makeup show watching the parade come back in. And I was fine. And I was just stood up against the curb, and Chris was talking to Tracy and Alexa just came over, and she just squeezed my arm, and I was away. That's all it took.
Yeah.
Wasn't that when we were trying to avoid saying goodbye to each other?
Yep.
Yes.
18 times.
Yeah. She come over, I was like, I guess we're going to say... No, that was right, because you said, I'm just going to say... I guess we're saying bye now, and I just walked away and went, nope. And I went and stood by the curb.
You do that every time. Every time.
And she came over.
I appreciate that because that makes it not happen for sure.
She came
over.
over.
Absolutely is how that
Well, I guess I have to extend my trip.
Yeah. She squeezed my arm, and that was it. They just came from nowhere.
Yeah.
I was... And I've been told that I'm that emotional that it even sparks emotion out of Chris, who never shows emotion.
Yeah. Was it that trip? Or was it the one prior to that? It sucks to, especially when we go, it's like a long period of time of hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you're when you were a kid, if you went like on a field trip or like a long trip with friends, and then like the trip is over, you have to get back to real life. And you kind of want to live in that moment for a bit longer.
Like staying over at a friend's house for the weekend.
Yes.
Like stay over Friday night, Saturday night, and that Sunday of going back home is so hard.
Dude, that is exactly it. Yep.
Or like summer camp friends. Especially at the Weekender, that's what it felt like. It was like when you have summer camp friends and you are fully removed from real life. Like you don't have to go back to school. You don't have anything else. You just have this very separate moment and life from what your real life is like.
And you also get to role play almost, not like role play as a kid, but like you get to live out like your kid kind of like, oh, I don't have any responsibilities right now. We're at a park. Let's go grab a drink. Let's go do this. Let's go do that.
Yep.
With your friends.
Let's go fight the Autobots,
Let's go be recruits.
Yes.
Like randomly laid in bed messaging Brian Cooper from the Universal Family Podcast, like, oh, what you doing? Not much. Fancy going for breakfast? Yeah, we'll meet you downstairs in 10 minutes, and you go and have breakfast with Brian and Laura, and they're like, fancy jumping in the car and going down to Epic Universe? Oh, okay then. All right.
Yeah.
10 minutes
You
later.
will never send me that message because I will not show up for breakfast.
No.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, it is a double-edged sword. I've said it many times, and like obviously doing this podcast is tough because we've been spoiled because we've been a lot over the last 5 years.
Yeah, we have.
And that not like I think average before this was like coming over like once every 4 years, and we've been like 6 times in the last 5 years at this point. So then knowing that we're probably not coming over next year is going to be tough.
At all?
Probably not.
Oh no, hang on. Yeah, think about my degree.
Yes, you will.
Probably not, honestly.
Yes, you will. You will.
Michelle's
Can't wait to see you next year.
That Portkey vacation credit card coming out. Anyway.
Things on fire right now.
It is tough having to talk about something every week that I'm so passionate about that I know I'm probably not going to get to see anytime soon is rough.
I will say it is weird, especially you guys. And like when you first came over, we had the first Weekender, which is the first time we met in person. And then weren't you doing like a trip every year for a bit, right?
So we came out in 2019. It was like October 2019, and we then already had February 2020 booked.
Yeah.
And then obviously COVID hit. So we had a trip planned. I think we were coming out for Horror Nights 2020.
Yeah.
And then we pushed that back and pushed that back. So we ended up doing 2 trips. 22, we did Horror Nights and the holidays. Yeah. And then Horror Nights last year. And then we weren't coming out this year. And then Tracy did an Audrey and went,
yeah, hello, Ed. I just went, it's my 21st birthday I want
Hell
celebrate.
Yeah. And the next thing, here we are. I mean, to be fair, the price we got is the cheapest we've probably ever paid for a package holiday to Orlando, and I'm going back 20 years.
I don't know. I don't deal with the money.
It was it would have been rude to have turned it down.
Oh. Well, I'm pleased to be of service
I like
then.
that. I like that theory.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
That sounds like a great ad for Porky Vacation.
Yeah.
It does, Lauren. We need to write that down. It would be rude. It would be rude not to book this vacation.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's disrespectful to the economy.
This next one's an interesting email because it was for a person who I would have said was a lot more confident than his email says. Lauren, can you read the next one, please?
Yes, our next email is from Kyle Plunkett. Many years ago, I went through a bad breakup that lost me some friends, and I was feeling very alone. I needed to get away and free my mind, and had always loved Universal when I was a kid, but wasn't very knowledgeable about the parks and resorts. So I found UUOP and started listening. Over the years, I would visit frequently and really admire the UUOP community that I became a Producers Club member. I tried my best to be very involved and helpful when people asked questions. And then I was lucky enough to be invited on to the podcast RIP tour in 2022. I was nervous as hell, but forced myself to go and meet everybody. And y'all were so kind and welcoming. To this day, it's one of my favorite memories. When the Weekender 2022 rolled around, I signed up, and even though I was going solo, I already knew from the RIP tour how kind and inviting everybody was. I randomly ended up meeting up with the Griswolds that first day because Joni got some Ruby passes for Hagrid's, and I, Joni, and David became instant friends. UUOP helped me out of a dark place and helped me make many lifelong friends when I felt like it was impossible to make new friends at my age. Thank you for creating this amazing community and bringing so many people together. I can truly say being a part of this community has helped my mental health in so many ways. I feel like, as humans, we all are searching for a place we feel like we belong, and everybody in this group has given me that.
Who would have thought Kyle was not a confident person, that he was nervous on that RIP tour?
Yeah, man, what you see online is different from in person.
Mm-hmm.
Strange, isn't it? It shows how many people hide what's going on.
Absolutely.
I mean, I never would have guessed that from my experience with Kyle at the Speakeasy.
No,
Nope.
no, definitely not.
That boy exuded confidence that night.
Liquid
Kyle.
confidence. No, but I mean, look, as a friend of his who we became friends after that because he lives down the street almost. He's talked to me about it. It's about not so much not being confident, but a little bit of that social anxiety or something like that that would deter him from doing a solo thing.
Yeah.
And he talks very highly of the Producers Club and some very close friends he's made through there.
Yeah.
And it's, he's an awesome dude.
He is.
And he's a great person to have around, makes people laugh.
Yes, he does.
And he's great to have a drink with too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things that he's hit the nail on the head for definite there. For I will say for Tracy and I, definitely finding a place where you feel like you fit. Because Tracy, you'll agree with me. We've always been the awkward ducks who were always on the outside looking in.
Yep.
And it's weird to be on the inside looking out.
Yeah, we've found our tribe of weirdos.
It's true.
Yep. Sure. And
But it's
Kyle
great. It's like an icebreaker.
Yes, exactly. Kyle was my stalker during Premium Scream Night.
Yeah.
For sure. Loved it. He's so cool. Like he just kept popping up everywhere. It's great.
Yeah.
I remember a conversation I had with Kyle when we first kind of like after the RIP tour that we just kind of like got to know each other a little bit. Then we started going to improvs a lot. And we were sitting down there one time, and from like where he lives, it's kind of a snooty, stuck up area. And that's kind of where he gets like I'm glad to be around my own people. Cause I remember he was wearing a Horror Nights t-shirt when we went to the Improv to go see a comedian. And when we were talking, he's like, yeah, it's just like, like if I wear this, like sometimes, people may look at it weird. I'm like, no, like that would be totally fine around me and all my friends. Like that. It's just the people that you're hanging around with aren't the right ones. It's not you that's off. It's everybody else.
Yes.
Right.
Like, would you go out on a Friday in a Horror Night shirt? I'm like, absolutely absolutely I would. Like that's 100%. When I go in public and I see people wearing Horror Nights shirts, not just Universal, but Horror Nights in particular.
Yeah.
Like I want to do this weird like nod and like hell yeah thing to them, but I don't want to look like a weirdo.
Like a secret handshake situation.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It's It's weird because over here, I never see you'll see people with Disney shirts on.
Yeah, it's rare to see.
Never see anybody with a Horror Nights shirt or just a Universal shirt or anything. It's really strange.
When I wear my Universal jacket, I've had a few people, like on campus mainly, a few people go, cool jacket. Yeah. Which park did you get that from? Yeah. And it's like, like you say, it's usually like a surprised reaction. Yeah. Because it's like Mickey Mouse is everywhere. You know. And in fact, I was wearing my Last of Us t-shirt over the weekend in the coffee shop. So I was like, oh, that's a cool t-shirt. Where did you get it from? Was talking to her. She was like, oh my God, I've always wanted to go to Horror Nights. And
go.
That's what I said. But she said coffee shops don't pay enough.
It's fair enough.
Yeah. But I'm glad Kyle, I am glad you forced yourself, because I think our life is richer with you in it.
And again,
100%.
Like we are
driving like crazy.
We are just us. Like if anyone's ever nervous, if you see us in the parks coming up and saying hi, we are just us.
Yeah, come over, see us. We'll overshare. You're part of the family.
That's why I think our community is as strong as it is, because there's no airs or graces. What you hear on here, all right, it's a slightly toned down version of
you maybe
of what I am.
This is the
normally,
family cut.
But I'm still me.
Yeah,
grumpy out, miserable.
Yep, that's yeah, I agree.
Sounds about right.
Right. We will take a quick break because there's two people on here who I need to pay their wages, and we'll be right back.
I wish to go to Universal Studios Singapore.
Hello, I'm Steven Spielberg. Ride the movies at Universal Studios Singapore. A spectacular destination for the people of the region and the people of the world.
Where can our vacation wizards take you? Just tap the port key at portkeyvacations.com and let the magic begin.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here going through some of our Producer Club members' mental health stories about Universal, and the next one is up from Sally Brush, and she says, I went to Universal for the first time in April 2021. Other than 2 vaccination appointments, for the first time I had left my house since leaving work on March 13th, 2020. And I lived alone, so going to Universal was my first contact with other human beings in over a year. It literally saved my sanity, Sally B.
Hell yeah.
Wow. Imagine that's the first time you've left the house properly is to go to Universal. Like,
I mean, if you're going to do it right.
Hell yeah.
Dude, I would have been like, well, if I'm going to die, I'd rather do it here.
Yes.
Yeah, just strike me down at the top of Velocicoaster. That's it for me.
Crest of the top of that, the top hat, and that'll do me.
Yeah.
Cool. Michelle?
Yes. Next comes from Rob Hoffman. Universal Orlando itself has been a major boon. Boon?
Yeah, it's a word. I looked it up. I'd never heard of it.
Really? Okay, I use that a lot.
It's a positive thing, yes.
I've never heard of that. I like that. Has been a major boon to my mental health. When I was 24, I went back to Orlando for the first time in a decade and did Universal first. The Jurassic Park River Adventure unlocked a childlike wonder and joy I hadn't experienced since then. Universal became my happy place. Universal had become an annual tradition of my own, the way Disney had been for my family as a kid. Consuming content about the parks became a much-needed dopamine hit. During that time, I found UUOP, and it has become a regular part of my life. In 2017, I went to HHN for the first time as I had just moved down to Florida. It was only for a year, unfortunately. And it has become my favorite thing in the world. In 2018, I went to the event solo and ran into 2 other guys who were also there solo that night. One from Ohio, Corey, another producer, and one local, Aaron. I literally plan my annual HHN trip around their availability now. And I've stayed in the guest room at Aaron and his wife Devani's home, and I went to Corey's wedding with Aaron and Devani. Without Universal and HHN, I don't have these close personal friends in my life. Less than 12 hours before I was taking a solo 18-hour drive to HHN in 2022, my girlfriend broke up with me. I was heartbroken. I almost bailed on my vacation to wallow in my sadness. It was an incredibly difficult drive the next morning, but with the accompanying voices of Lee and Tracy and Michelle and Chris, I was able to tough it out and make the trip. the friendships I've made, and the people I spent time with at HHN in 2022 really saved me from a dark place. To summarize, Universal Orlando and UUOP have been a wonderful positive for my mental health. The communities that I have found through them have been nothing but fun, supportive, inclusive environments of people who care about each other and have a passion for this theme park world we love. I love Universal Orlando, and my mental state would be much worse off without all of it.
Wow.
I think the thread that's running through all of these is the word community.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting, like Chris, you and I talk about the annual pass holder group being a bit of a show at times. But it shows that, I would talk about the Producers Club. It is a very welcoming place.
It is.
And I'm not saying that just to go, come and join, because it's awesome, but it is.
But it really is.
I always say that the Facebook group, and if you're not on Facebook in that group and you're a producer, get on just for that.
Yeah.
It's just a great place to be.
Yeah.
Because it's very natural. It's very like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
People come together.
Yeah.
There's no.
It's drama-free.
Pretty much.
It's drama-free.
Yeah. And supportive.
And that doesn't mean that people don't get into arguments there, because it happens, but in a very respectful way.
Yes.
And I love it.
Yeah.
Well, not arguments, debates.
Debates.
Disagreements.
But never arguments.
Yeah, because let's be honest, as a theme park fan, the one thing you have is your opinion.
Yes. And if everybody liked the same thing, there'd be one ride.
Exactly. As our good friend Andy DeGenova says, that's why restaurants have menus.
Yes. Well, and what's cool about it is that the community, the Facebook group for sure. It's so interesting because it's a large group. It really is a large group of people, and we're all able to have our different opinions, but be respectful. Everybody seems to be intelligent. I don't know how else to say this. But in like other groups, such as the pass holder group, there's just a lot of like, what is wrong with you? Kind of. You know what I mean? Where you're just like
media behavior.
I know what you mean.
Keyboard warriors.
But like, but in this group, when you go and ask a question, help planning your trip or whatever, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get an intelligent, researched answer.
Yes. Yeah. You're not going to get, that's what Google was invented for, which is what I saw the other day in the other group.
There's many times I want to go and make sarky comments on people's questions, but I don't.
If you type them out and delete them, you feel much better, and then you haven't actually exposed yourself online, which sounded better in my head.
It's the ones that post, has anyone been to SeaWorld? And I'm like, it's been open for 40 years. Yes, lots of people have been to SeaWorld.
Anyway. One thing I love about this post is where was it here? It is that he stayed in a guest room at Aaron and his wife's home and then went to Corey's wedding with Aaron. Like, that to me, I just love this butterfly effect-y type of scenarios where had he not gone and like gone to the trip or listened to joined UUOP, like these events wouldn't have happened. Now he has like super close friends. Like so many other stories that we have heard and known in you mean like your own friends. Correct. Yeah. Like all this is literally the same thing. I just love hearing like these just
the knock-on effects of it.
Friendships that occur out of there. I love it.
It's amazing.
I have so many friends now because of this podcast.
Yeah.
Hardcore friendships.
Hardcore.
I love that you said that. That's how you just, it's so true.
Yeah.
These aren't just like acquaintances.
No, these are ride or dies.
Yeah.
And I've never had this before in my life.
My best friends are because of this.
Yeah. I have sisters now.
It's crazy.
Which is just...
Yeah, these are people that'll help you bury a body.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We should
Absolutely.
Tracy, I love you.
And I love you too.
It hates me, but whatever.
Yeah.
Tracy,
I just want to say, though, that for Rob, as a Halloween Horror Nights fan, to make a friend with Corey Ohio...
Oh, yeah.
I think that's quite amusing.
I'm assuming that's Corey Hall.
I would assume so because he did recently get married.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I thought so. Tracy,
yes.
Can you do the next one, please?
I will. This comes from Lauren Grigg. I loved the previous mental health episode and have been torn over sharing how it has impacted our family because it involves my son who has autism. I didn't want to share that publicly, but I love this group and hoped our story might encourage others. We went through a really rough season. We went through a really rough season with him where he could go to really dark places, and sometimes the only way to get him in a better headspace was to talk about Universal or pull up pictures and videos of the parks and rides. As we would look and reminisce, I would watch the pain and hurt fall away as we remembered a past trip or in look forward to a future trip. I never thought a crowded theme park would be a good space for him, but the passes we use there make it something he can handle. We always look forward to our trips, and it's the only vacation spot that he enjoys. It was so hard as his mum watching him struggle, and I found that when we were having a rough week, I really looked forward to the podcast and filled my feed and headspace with all things Universal. I'm so thankful to be part of this group with other people just as obsessed as we are. Lauren. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you would think a theme park wouldn't necessarily be the best place with someone with autism, but I think Universal do a really good job with stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's so many accommodations I mean, and this is something that I've worked with people when I'm planning trips on. I mean, they have the quiet rooms, they have spaces. I mean, there's so many places that you can take as a little detour to just stop being overstimulated. And especially something when I'm helping people book that might have a family member who has some neurodivergence, staying at a hotel close by, because you can also just sort of escape to that hotel. And that's something that is a little harder to do at the parks down the road because you got to hop on a bus and go so much farther away. But if you can just walk over to Hard Rock or hop on the boat, it's a way of just sort of distancing yourself from that world. And it's something that's so easy to do, and they make it really accommodating.
Yeah. This is also a testament to Lauren as a parent, because Lauren is also handling this whole situation as well. So Lauren's, with having a child that's also neurodivergent, it is about assessing things. So, the fact that technically, Lauren, you are working with Universal here to make this such a positive experience for your son. So, that's hats off to you as well. I mean, because neurodivergence isn't easy to handle, and especially in an overwhelming place like this.
And what I love about Universal is that even for a busy theme park, there are those spaces that you can get away from things. Even at Horror Nights, when our youngest had a bit of a meltdown, it was funny that was the first year I saw it through their eyes of, if you have any sort of sensory issue, that area out the back of Jimmy Fallon with those 3 switchback queues, I can't even imagine how someone with any sort of sensory issue deals with those Horror Nights crowds.
It's just an assault.
But we managed to find a space away from all of that in not really a tucked away area either, to be fair. I know from talking to Maureen from Autism at the Park as well, she knows a lot of those. There's a lot of water about, which is obviously a lot, it's calming for...
Yeah, it's white noise, isn't it?
For people and stuff. And again, just for them having somewhere that wouldn't necessarily be at the top of your list to help calm someone down with autism, that it is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that's like really cool here and very beautiful, honestly, is how she mentions that, his happy place, let's call it, is Universal. And whether or not she loves Universal doesn't matter to her, because she fills her headspace with all things Universal because it brings so much peace and happiness to her son.
Yes.
And as a parent, that's such a beautiful thing to...
Lost Chris.
Because it brings her son happiness. It is her happy place now.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yes. As Bluey will soon become your happy place, Chris.
Honestly, I can't wait to binge Bluey. I've been hearing some good things about it.
Chris, next one, please.
All right. Next one up is from Austin Cleary. I suppose you could call me a late bloomer when it comes to Universal and theme parks in general. I went to Islands of Adventure when I was 5, the summer of 2000. So fast forward to November of 2019, and I see an ad on Facebook for a special event at Universal. I can't say who was hosting it at the risk of this story not being read. Wonder who. My wife and I got married on November 2nd, and I booked this special event as a second honeymoon for us to come February 2020. I was at my all-time happiest. Christmas rolls around, and my wife opens the gift of the event, and we are equally excited as she had never been to Universal aside from HHN. The morning of December 27th, 2019, my grandfather, who was battling dementia, among other diseases, took his last breath. This was a gut punch, as I was named after him. He was one of my biggest heroes. 2.5 weeks later, on January 13th, 2020, I got a phone call from my mom at 2:47 in the morning. She was hysterical. I was having a lot of trouble making out what she was trying to say. So I said, please don't worry, I will be there soon. I had no clue what I was driving into. I was making my usual 13-minute drive to her house. As I pulled into her driveway, I was greeted by an ambulance and 2 fire trucks. My dad was laying lifeless on the floor after suffering from a heart attack, which put me at an all-time low. I was already suffering from severe depression, and this just piled even more on top. Fast forward to February 28th, 29th of 2020, and my wife and I check into Cabana Bay, and were instantly pulled away from our day-to-day life and transported into a feeling of immersion, which neither of us have ever felt. We had 2 of the most amazing nights at both parks. We all know how the 2020 pandemic affected us. I needed that feeling of escaping back to the parks, not even a month after our event. I searched for podcasts about Universal and gladly found this one. I started listening with the Big Fat Quiz episode on January of 2020.
Oof.
And while I didn't know the answers, it was extremely entertaining, and it felt like I was a fly on the wall listening to a few friends just banter back and forth. I was hooked from there. I've now had the pleasure of meeting Chris, Alexa, Lee, and Tracy, among a few, with a few other producers, and hope to meet more in the future. Michelle still eludes me. Thank you for keeping this going and being that support system even when you had no idea I existed. Much love to you all, Austin.
Chris, are you struggling there?
A little bit.
That was tough.
That was a tough one.
So yeah, that's about the 4th time I've read it. So
wow, Austin.
But yeah,
I am so sorry that you've been through that.
I'm sorry for your loss, man.
Wow.
Losses.
Yeah.
Losses.
Yeah, that's a lot to go through in such
really
a short
for
time.
anybody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's great that this was something that was able to sort of bring you out of it, because it can be so easy when you're suffering like that to kind of get trapped in your own head.
Yeah, and wallow in it.
And
it's
this,
too easy to wallow in
and
it.
this takes you out of it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the magic of going to these places, especially when every ride gives you a task to do.
Yep.
Like, I have to help Megatron right now.
Yeah.
I have to.
I'd just like to say that Lauren rides that ride very different to the rest of us, by the way, that she has to help Megatron, because I thought we were helping Optimus
I'm
Prime.
trying.
But whatever.
I mean, I understand that like everyone else is like Optimus Prime, great, but like, why are we so sure that
Exactly.
Megatron?
I mean, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes
But
I think villains.
Or like, I've been assigned to join the Men in Black, and I'm not thinking about the work projects that I have going on in real life.
Yeah.
I am very busy trying to break 100,000 right now.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing that the average person doesn't get. When you go to work and your work colleagues aren't theme park people, and they're like, "Oh my god, again!" They always go, "Oh, you're going to Disney World again," and I'm like, "Off."
What do they do? What is their escapism then?
Oh, Disneyland? No, they'll go, "Oh, you're going back to Disneyland, are you?" And like, well, first of all, Disneyland's in California, and I'm not going to Disney World either. But whatever. That they just see it as theme parks as being kids' things, and they're not at all.
Yeah.
No.
It's so much more than the rides and the food. It's the sum of its parts entirely, and people just don't understand that. And I Tracy, to go off back what you were saying there, I feel sorry for people who don't feel. I always remember the first time they found out about this podcast at work.
I remember you coming home
I was
that day.
mortified because I was so embarrassed by it for so long, and I was stood in one of the rooms, and one of my work colleagues come up and went, "You all right?" I was like, yeah. He went, "How's Hunter?" And I'm like, "Okay." I said, "He's all right." "Yeah, all right." And I was like, "Why?" "I was a podcast guy." I was like, "Oh." And then it just got round work, and one of them started playing. It was our Diagon Alley round table. I think it was Jesse and Gregory and Darren and me.
Wow.
And Gregory was talking about walking into Diagon Alley for the first time and crying.
Yeah.
As an adult. and Jonathan, the lad who was like he was a muscle-bound lad. He was a lad, right? And he's like, did he just say he was crying? And I just thought, oh, you just don't get it, do you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. It's not just something to do. It's an experience.
It really is.
You know, and if you don't... I don't trust anybody that doesn't have some sort of emotional response to these parks.
You don't.
Yeah.
I do.
Either escapism or solace or something to kind of soothe. I mean, even in this instance, like it's amazing with that much loss that quickly that the brain can go one of two ways. It can go in defiance and like none of that, or it can go the opposite way and bring back kind of that escapism or just peace in your heart for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm glad that Austin had that to keep him on the level, I guess.
Because it was last year we met up with him, didn't we? We were at the like drink window over by Cafe La Bamba when him and his missus came over to us.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He transports everywhere. I see him like I bumped into him at Horror Nights. I think that's the last time we saw him. He was just standing next to me and I'm just like, oh, what's up?
But it's that thing, I think it was Joni posted it on Facebook or Instagram or something this week, just one of those, those like inspirational quotes, and it was something, paraphrasing, something along the lines of, life's too short to not do stupid things that just bring you joy. I can't remember exactly. And I think the theme parks are immensely that. It doesn't matter how stupid it might be to other people, but if it brings you joy, who cares?
Yeah. Life is different to how it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. Being an adult now is completely different to our parents' generation.
If you were an adult in a theme park when we were kids, you were there because you were there with your kids.
And you were there holding coats and shelling out money.
Right.
And there's a phrase now, adulting enough. I adult enough to get by, and then the rest of the time is for fun.
I like who it was. I can't remember who said it now. I was like, was it Jen? I think it was Jenna said it about being... You can be a big kid. It's not being an adult. It's being a big kid with responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Except I try to run away from that bit as well.
I think that the secret to happiness isn't just like, I don't think secret to happiness is something like monetarily. It's doing all the stuff your parents told you not to do as a kid.
Absolutely.
Now that you have adult money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I have a universal pass.
Yep.
There's no way my parents were okay with that. I bought, I have a stand-up bit about it that ends in a way that'll end up on the cutting room floor. But I'm like, you gotta get that season pass to Universal. You gotta get a lifetime pass to the laser tag place. You gotta do everything your parents told you not to do as a kid, like date the gym teacher.
But it's right. You've got.
I saw with gym teachers.
You've got a generation of adults now who go to theme parks, who read comic books and play video games and watch animated movies. It's like...
Why are you talking about me?
Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's no way our parents... Like, again, if you were watching an animated movie as a parent, like my parents, our generation, you were there because you were watching it with the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be caught dead doing it by someone, other adult, unless you were like, oh, no, this isn't for me. This has nothing to do with me. I'm just here.
Yeah.
I remember taking Finn, our youngest, to see bloody Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and I was the oldest person in that cinema by a long way. In fact, we went to see Transformers 1 a couple of weeks ago. I think I was the oldest person in there.
I mean, you are pretty old.
I'm not that old.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't have to go that like far back. I remember the last trip we were together, and we were killing time in Seuss Landing, waiting for something. I forgot what. And it's just like, oh, do you guys, I think it's like 10 of us, right? 15 of us, all adults. And just kind of like, you guys go ride Cat in the Hat or what? Yeah. And everybody's like, hell yeah, let's go. I'm like, all right. And then like the girls went in one cart, the guys, and it's like 5 big grown adults in the car. And I'm like, well, for fun, let's count how many Thing 1s and Things 2s are here. And like, that's what we did as adults. It was one of the funnest times ever, just all of us being together. Stupid. Completely stupid, but so enjoyable, and I love it. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
And we've all remembered it.
I wasn't there. I got left out, but whatever.
That sounds like a you problem. You were probably off somewhere being an adult.
I was stood outside with Grayson, meeting and greeting with Producers Club members, actually.
Yeah, you were being an adult then.
Lauren, can you read our last email, actually?
Absolutely. So this one is from Melissa Rafferty. My only specific mental health story relates to being there for Hurricane Ian. As a Brit with no experience of hurricanes, it was worrying and unsettling to be in that situation, particularly when we realized how serious it was and how much destruction was happening. Thankfully, we were in Royal Pacific, and Universal went out of their way to keep guests safe and even entertained. Even though their staff were probably worried about their own homes and families, they were selfless, and we felt safe as we could be under the circumstances because of Universal and Royal Pacific staff, which I am very grateful for. In general, Universal and UUOP are really good for my mental health. So much of Universal is nostalgia for me. I was lucky enough to go a few times from the UK as a child, and some of my favorite childhood memories took place there. The smell of ET feels like my childhood. As I've become older, there's been so many things I've celebrated at Universal. Finishing school, finishing uni, and then reliving it all with my family again 10 years later. Universal has always been a happy and safe place full of memories with my family. Thinking about it makes me happy. That brings me to UUOP. I don't know when I'll next get to Orlando. It's likely to be years, but UUOP keeps me connected to the parks, and listening is a mini escape from the stressors of life and momentarily takes me back to Orlando, sun, and my happy place. Listening on a dog walk after a tough day at work is the perfect way to wind down. Thank you all very much for the podcast. Melissa.
It's weird. It's weird how much of a connection people have to this podcast when it's like, it's just us waffling about and taking the piss out of each other. And
yeah, but that's just normal life, and people like banter.
But we're talking about things that they want to hear about.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, I wouldn't necessarily, there's so many podcasts out there about pretty much every topic you can think of in the world.
Yeah.
And most of them, I don't want to hear people waffle on about. But Universal, yeah.
And there are other places people can watch YouTube videos about Universal stuff, but there isn't necessarily that connection to that community. I mean, there are some channels where I'm watching this because I'm addicted to Universal, not because I like this person talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you guys are likable, so great job.
Thanks, Lauren.
Well, I've said right from the start that I created this podcast because it's what I wanted to listen to. Because there wasn't, when we started, there was nothing else out there, and I'm like, if there was a Universal podcast out there, what would I want to listen to? So effectively, I created this for me.
Yeah, I think that's the key.
I mean, isn't that what most people do when they start a podcast?
I think there's a lot of narcissists out there who do it because they want to.
They want to be famous. And get all the plaudits.
And don't get me wrong, I love it when people
don't start a podcast if what you want is fame. It's going to take a minute.
Well, it's been a few minutes.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I love it when people come up to us in the park and recognise us. It's amazing, but it's not why I'm doing it. I don't really know why I'm doing it at this point. Out of duty, I guess.
You already said
You just said it earlier.
All right, fair enough. Because I like to talk. Was that it? I can't remember what
Probably.
I said. Because I like to hear the sound of my own voice. It certainly isn't that.
Can someone just clip that for me and send it to me, because
it's not
that
true.
would be very useful.
I hate the sound of my own voice. I've just got used to it over years of it having to edit it.
I know, I do too, which is why I don't listen to our episodes anymore. And that earlier submission where they said that Tuesdays are their favorite day because it's a podcast drop day, I can relate to that. This was pre me being on the show. Yeah. That was me.
No, she hates Tuesdays.
I loved Tuesdays for podcast drop day.
I love Tuesdays.
Now I don't want to hear myself talk. So
I am in the same boat with Michelle. Literally prior to being on the show, I got Alexa. I used to be a pass holder many years ago. That went away for certain reasons, and then started dating Alexa, and she loved the parks. And then we both wanted to consume as much content as possible. So we were on the pass holder page, refreshing multiple times a day. I know this sounds weird. This was pre-Matt Korn pass holder page. It was actually not as bad as it is now. We're talking thousands of people less.
Yeah.
Matt Korn.
Pre-Matt Korn. It was Jessica something, I think it was. And we just could not consume enough content. And then we found I found the podcast and then I showed it to her, and it was literally our thing. And we were going up to the parks a lot. So we would not only listen to all of them, but if we knew a trip was upcoming, we'd try to save like 2 to 3.
Yeah.
So that we can just back to back them and binge them on the ride up and catch up with everything. And then that's when Alexa started coming up with a master list of all the things to do at Universal when you've been so many times.
Yeah.
And we just, every time we heard something that was new, it's like write that on the list. And then every trip that we went, we would just knock off a couple different items on that list. And it just made every trip a little bit different. It was amazing.
Cool.
It's true though, isn't it? Like how long between the 4 of us, we've got tons of trips. I was going to say hundreds. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but you know.
I don't know. Michelle's there, so.
Yeah, probably.
A lot of
trips, yes.
You know, a lot of trips.
Yes.
Between the 4 of us, and yet we can still learn things that we didn't know. It's funny because you talk about it, Lauren, watching YouTube stuff. We're like, if we see a YouTube video that's like 20 things at Universal Orlando that you didn't know, we're like, right, challenge accepted, bring it on.
Exactly. Oh, for sure. I went on a VIP tour once, and she was asking questions, and I was answering them. She goes, no one has literally ever known who Lost One was. And I was like, you're welcome. Thanks to my neurodivergent, I only watch stuff about this.
Brilliant.
Also, did you know that the NSYNC music video was filmed right here?
Did she give you her VIP shirt?
Brilliant.
No, I tried to. She was like, we had to memorize a book. I was like, I bet I already got it. Thank you.
Yeah. But it's funny.
Would love to know what your book has, but thank you.
Tracy and I have had a very similar experience to Melissa because our first trip to Orlando was during a hurricane.
Yes.
So I know what that's like.
Gene.
And it's not something we deal with over here. So just coming over to a new country, which is, I've said a million times before, the US it's familiar enough that you kind of feel like you're home, but it's different enough that you know you're not.
Yeah.
I could see how hurricanes could scare the shit out of somebody.
Yeah, and when you're not really getting any information when you're coming in, and it's just like everything looks like a ghost town. It was.
Well, we're talking about pre-proper internet as well when we first came over. So it wasn't like we didn't have smartphones. So it was like literally we had Wesh 2 on the telly and that was it.
And our, goodies.
See, my last trip was during a hurricane, and it was quite fabulous. It was actually one of my favorite trips ever.
Strange. But yes, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everyone else. We have one last clip to play.
Hi, UUOP. It's me, Kayla, your host on Taste of Universal. I just wanted to call in about the mental health question that you asked. So mental health is the reason that I started going to Universal, like 100%. So I moved to California right out of college, and I grew up in Pennsylvania. My whole world was in Pennsylvania for the most part. And I moved across the country without knowing anyone. It was always my dream, and I have no regrets. But yeah, I was in a totally different place and didn't have family or friends around. And for holidays, especially, I think it was the holidays that started it. You know, there's all these songs about coming home for Christmas and being with your parents, and flights were triple around Christmas time. And so I skipped a lot of holidays and went to Universal for many Thanksgivings and Christmases, for every birthday. And I think it was Harry Potter to start, seeing Hogwarts, hearing the music. The Harry Potter music was already my safe space, something that I listen to if I just need to meditate and find a calming center. Even the scary scenes that sound like I'm being attacked, there's just something about them that make me feel really at ease and calm. And then, you know, as I started going more and more, it became the place where I met up with my friends. It became the place after a great day, after a bad day. You know, bad day at the office, I would drive 20 minutes down, park, and just get dinner at the Three Broomsticks. And then I moved back to the East Coast, and it was the first time that, I think it was Christmas, that I was like, I feel like it's not Christmas. Like, I'm not at Universal. I'm not seeing the Universal decorations. And, you know, even though now it was Orlando, it was just like I had to go. I went, and, you know, now I have tons of friends in Orlando or people that go to Orlando. Often my husband loves going. I go with friends, I meet up with friends, and it's just a place where I'm already a kid at heart, but I can just really be myself. I could dress in a tutu and glitter on my face and scream on a roller coaster and eat fun gluten-free food. And now, as you guys know, met my Seekender group that we meet every Monday once a month to talk about typically Universal news. And it's just the most incredible place that it's the best place to celebrate the great moments like an engagement or a promotion or a birthday or adopting a baby. And it's also the place that can pick you up when on the worst days. And it's like feeling happy, I really want to go. And when I'm really down, it's the first place I'll look to book a trip to. I know it'll be there for me whenever I need it. Sorry, that was really long. Thanks, I love you guys.
I mean, let's be honest, through adopting the baby, Universal has completely cemented itself in Kayla's memories at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Again, we're going to go back to community and everyone. There's so many people who if listen to this show who aren't theme park people, who just go, oh my God, these people need to get a grip of themselves. Like, what the hell? But that's the thing, that everybody listening to this will completely understand what everyone else means when it comes to having this place that is somewhere that is just your crutch to lean on should you need it for whatever reason.
Well, technically, mental health was the reason we came to the parks.
Yeah.
Because our first trip, a lot of people know our story. Our first trip was our...
Because we kind of did that again, didn't we?
Yeah, but we'd had some bad news, I guess. I still don't know whether we ever processed that. And we always laugh and say we used it as an excuse to have the holiday of a lifetime. That was our, what do they call it? Not booby prize. Consolation prize. But when you actually consider it, that was actually mental health management.
Yeah.
We were taking a big disappointment and making something positive out of it.
Yeah, I'd never considered that.
No,
actually.
it's just through listening to this, it's made me realise.
But then 20 years ago, mental health wasn't really
didn't
a
exist,
thing,
did it?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I dread to think where we would be with things we've gone through in our life if we didn't have this to fall back on.
I wouldn't be sat here now, I could tell you that.
Not just the parks, but the community as well.
Yes. Yeah, because you've got people out there now that understand what we've been through.
Yeah.
And that's huge. That's a huge thing, to have a group of people who understand the shit that's going on in your life on a daily basis.
Yeah. And this community as well that has grown around us, I don't think there's a problem or an issue anybody could have that somebody else in there hasn't experienced and could support them with.
Mm-hmm.
And while it's terrible that's like 2 or more people going through the same thing, there's comfort in somebody who truly understands.
Yeah.
And you can basically feel like you're talking out your arse, but somebody knows exactly what you're saying.
So basically what she's saying is if you see her and Joni together, just stay clear.
We have our own little weird party. Leave us alone.
It's like, oh my God, I thought I was the only person that saw stars coming out of someone's ass every day.
No.
You should get that checked out.
Yeah. That's not stars.
I'm not saying you're hallucinating. But.
Yeah. I thought it was the sunshine that came out my ass.
You are? No.
The sunshine of my ass?
Yeah.
Is that what you were going to sing?
No.
Sunshine of my ass.
Joni and I have a very strange connection that we're still working out. It's very odd.
But yes, mental health's a huge thing, and like we've said, like it's so many over the course of these 2 episodes of how much it means to people, and it's huge. And I hope it continues to be a source of happiness for everyone, and we get an extra bit of happiness next year, or sadness, depending on which way you're going to look at it.
Happiness.
'Cause I know which way I'm going to look at it next year, and it's not happiness.
Well, I think it's been established we're going, so I wouldn't
We're going
worry.
to look as far as...
Yeah, we're going to see you.
I'll get into this in the bonus episode. I feel like I need to vent and I don't want to do it on here. Thank you, everyone, for sending in your emails. I think that's them all at this point. Yeah.
I hope we get more to have another show like this.
We could do, yeah, for definite. Absolutely.
I think it's therapy for everybody.
It is important, yeah, for definite. So yeah, that's going to wrap up the show. Don't forget, send us in your How Bad is Fast and Furious Supercharged jokes along with your Which Stick Gets Your Lick recordings, and you can send them to that address, which is podcast@uuopodcast.com. And if you want to be part of this amazing community that we've been talking about for this whole episode, come and join us in the Producers Club. To sign up, just go to uuop.supercast.com and we'd love to see you on board. So for all of us, we shall see you back here next week.
Are you insane? Get out of here. The curse, it's real. The podcast is over. So, the Magi want you to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, TikTok, and Pinterest. Just search UUO Podcast. For all the podcast news and articles, check out our blog at uuopodcast.com. Contact us by emailing us at podcast@uuopodcast.com. And if you want to join the Producers Club, email us at uuopproducers@gmail.com. Silence! With your subscriptions, we shall rule for all eternity. Listen and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Not even the Magi can save you now. There is no escape. Your end shall be my beginning. Prepare yourself for your next trip by emailing Michelle at portkeyvacations.com. She can take care of all aspects of your next Universal Orlando vacation. We hope you enjoyed your podcast. Please remain seated and keep your arms and legs inside the prepare to forfeit your souls. Check out the other podcasts on the UUOP network. Rush of Fear, Halloween Horror Nights podcast, the theme park duo for all your West Coast news and info, the Taste of Universal, Universal Orlando Food podcast, and the newest podcast on the network, the Port Key Passport, our Disney-centric podcast. So hey, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. I would have enjoyed this podcast a lot more if I had gotten my cup of coffee.